Hello, welcome to the weekly review. I am Kendi Mbaya, sitting in for Alex Njiri, and today I am hosting the gracious Agnes Ibara, governance and policy expert. Welcome, Agnes.
Thank you very much, Kendi, for having me.
Today we're going to analyze the BBI, the hits and misses for the youth. Agnes has been very instrumental in lobbying for the youth in BBI. Agnes, you vied into the 2017. How was it?
Kendi, you've just awakened a memory that I try to hold very dear to me. And because I was amongst the youngest women in Nairobi.
How old were you?
I was 26 at the time.
Congratulations.
Going for ward seat in Nairobi. And Nairobi is known to be a very aggressive, dangerous political field, especially for young women. But I decided to present myself for office because I had noticed some issues that had cropped up within my community, and I felt at best that I should go and represent my people in the County Assembly of Nairobi. But at the political level, at the nominations, I unsuccessfully didn't garner enough votes to win the party ticket. But I continued staying in the ground and engaging on issues that I find very dear to me, that are issues among youth and women.
You know, interestingly, I was watching you during the signature launch. As you were speaking, you spoke.
Yes.
And you spoke very well. And I was looking at you and thinking, these are the issues that BBI addresses. This girl would have been a nominated MCA if we had BBI in 2017. And I believe you have made the changes. I listened to you and you are passionate. So is BBI right for this country, or are we just pushing it too hard?
I support BBI for many reasons, Kendi, and among them is that it has chosen to address issues such as party nominations. And when a proposal to amend the Political Parties Act was put forward, I was very enthusiastic to go through it and to offer my support, because I was a candidate back in 2017, and I felt like not to be entitled or anything, but if the democratic process was fair, women such as us who had vied would have made it into the County Assembly. And I was delighted to find out that amongst the proposals that were being made by the BBI, it is now very, very, very compulsory to actually nominate women who presented themselves into office.
Yeah.
You know, past the years, we've had women who have not been in the political circles, gotten from outside political parties, outside political movements, and brought into these nomination slots, and disadvantaging and maybe even further discouraging young women who would want to go for these political offices. So a proposal to have and to nominate women who have already presented themselves would further encourage women from the grassroots to present themselves for office.
Agnes, I'll say the youth is actually one of the most difficult constituencies to place. One, you vied as a youth.
Yes.
How many youth voted for you?
We can substantiate the totals, and you know, if we were to maybe talk about the numbers at large, we would not have a conclusive conversation, because there are so many anomalies within the political nominations that actually lock out young people from coming and voting for their ideal candidates. But now that you've mentioned myself as a young person and why the youth demographic is difficult, Kendi, I'll bring to your attention the fact that the youth demographic is very large. We have a demographic between 18 years to 35. And Kendi, this is a very difficult demographic. It's a transitional demographic.
And very hard to please.
And not very hard to please, but it has, over the years, we don't have, maybe I can say, one unifying functional or framework of consolidating all of the youth issues together. Because, Kendi, you'll agree with me that these issues affecting the young people are varied. We can pit against a young person in the rural area and one in the urban area, and their challenges will not be the same. And the challenges of an educated young person and those of an uneducated young person are not the same. The challenges of a skilled young person and those of a skilled young person are not the same. So majority of these issues and the fact that it is very vast and diverse, it makes it very hard for young people to be unified. But there are some cross-cutting issues because young people over the years have just wanted to be socially, economically and politically involved in the issues about their country.
So let me cut you short, Agnes. Help me understand this. 70% of the population is
75%,
youth.
yes.
70 to 75%
Yes.
of the population is youth. And here we are bending over backwards, trying to give special provisions to the youth. If youth wanted to lead this country, wouldn't they lead? I have a problem with the youth because the youth, we leave a youth like you, who's vying, and go and vote for another person, maybe 50, 60 years, who looks like a youth. Rather, a youth would rather vote for a 60-year-old who wears bling because they think that person can relate better with the youth issues than vote for a fellow youth. So we are recreating special provisions for the majority of this country.
It would be very erroneous to claim that youth, you are bending back to address youth issues. I think a person who thinks of youth as an entitled demographic or entitled people is mistaken. The youth are the cogs of this society. They run everything. And the only issue that they are raising is because they are not involved in the decision-making levels.
But they would if they wanted to.
Yes, they would. But you also have to acknowledge that our politics also further divides our young people. We are pitted against candidates. We are used for political expediency. It's the young people who go on the ground, on the field to fight each other. So that in itself is divisive.
So how do we move from there, where we move from the youth being the muscle, the stone throwers, all that, to the youth coming now to the table and making decisions?
And it's a good question that you've asked, Kendi. I would go back to the BBI conversation and why I'm a full supporter and why I feel like this document is the best bet yet at solving youth issues. Kendi, I will take you back through the years when we've had divisive elections that most likely end in deaths and bloodshed. And I will maybe lift the numbers. Through the years, we've had over 4,000 young people being killed in an electoral cycle. Just the other year, we had over 2,000 being killed in an electoral cycle. And I believe when we have an issue of inclusiveness and expansion of the government, to have a prime minister position, a deputy prime minister position, and we would expand this to also have deputy prime minister positions, to have that feeling of inclusion within government. Most people, Kendi, we have about maybe 5 candidates going for the top office, and only one wins. We have a winner-take-all system of our elections. But if we are expanding this executive, it would mean that these people who have failed to clinch this top electoral seat would not go back to the community and incite the young people. So when they're included and there will be that feeling of inclusion within government, it will mean that less young people will be incited towards violence and there will not be this further division. So that's why I really, really support the BBA document.
We already have youthful parliamentarians.
Yes.
And looking by them, are you proud of how they represent the youth?
Especially proud because we have not had significant representation of young people within our national assemblies or our county assemblies or senate. And having young people there, by the mere fact that they are inside these assemblies, is representation enough for the young people. And when there are issues about the young people discussed in these various assemblies, they are at the forefront championing for these issues.
Yeah, but we have the issue of quality versus quantity. The kind of politicians you've gotten into parliament, the youthful politicians, are people who will insult you on social media without feeling a thing. There are people who have vices we cannot even talk about in this show. They are a representation of the youth. When people look at them, that is what they envision that a youthful politician looks like. So the public is thinking, my mom is thinking, if I have 60 more people like this, who are going to be shooting people and insulting people, I mean, this country will become ungovernable. So how do we change the public's perception of what a youth leader looks like? We're used to a youth leader in campus. They only call demonstrations, throw stones, and that's it. So how do we change what people see the youth as? That now they're not stone throwers, they are people who can make decisions, who can make policies.
The perfect response to that question would be the analogy of the bad apple. It's been used to paint the picture of that rotten apple in a basket full of other good apples that ends up making the other apples bad. Kendi, you must agree, even in your communication field, that there are good and bad apples. And I don't think politicians would be excused from this.
I am a youth, but
Yes.
I'm not proud of many of them.
Yes, but even so, we would not use it as an excuse not to bring people into power. But having said that, I believe the issues of inculcating moral values within our society, and that is one of the things that had been proposed within the BBI to really nurture the ethical values that we have within the young people. They have talked about educating young people within pre-primary and their lower basis of education to inculcate values within them. And I think this would not have come at a better time, because we are eroding values in this country, and we need something to ground us and to remind us of our value in this society and why good acts and deeds and ethics are important.
Agnes, or is it so difficult for the youth to support each other? Like, if we wanted to, we will have a candidate and present this as our presidential candidate. Move away from the tribal kind of politics. Say, huyu ndio candidate wa youth. Why is it so hard to get such a candidate? That we are always supporting other candidates in the hope that they're going to parliament and take our concerns there.
The same arguments have been made for the women, and I've had year in, year out, the women being asked, why is it that you can't field a candidate? And if women wanted, being the majority of this country, 51%, if you wanted to have a female candidate as president, you would elect one. But Kendi, I would maybe bring to your attention that the young people, being 75% of the population, this number starts from 0 to 35 years of age. But when it comes to those people who vote, we have 13% of the adult population that actually from 18 to 35 who can be able to vote. But having said that, I would call to your attention to a democratic process. We would not really want to box the young people into one singular ticket and tell them that this is the only candidate you can support. You know, Kendi, if you present yourself for office, and even when I was on that ground as an MCA aspirant in Ngara, I had other young people vying. But you cannot tell the young people of Ngara, we could not tell the young people of Ngara that this young person is here, support them. We have multiple candidates serving the same demographic, just as the women do. And even so, if we have multiple candidates serving the same demographic, you cannot tie a demographic to a particular candidate in the basis of their ages. That would not be a democratic process, Kendi.
Agnes Ibara.
Yes.
It must have been difficult.
Slightly.
Okay, there were challenges.
Yes.
How do you think BBI will address those challenges? If we had BBI in 2017, do you think it would have been easier for you?
Definitely, I would be sitting and talking to you here as a legislator.
As a nominated member?
Yes, as a nominated member, or even maybe a legislator in the National Assembly or the Senate. And I'll also maybe go back to the proposals within the BBI to amend the Political Parties Act or the Political Financing Act, where we've had a proposal to make sure that political parties have and field candidates on the, we can call them the affirmative seats or the minority clusters of the PWDs, the women and the youth. And they have been told that if you do not have enough youth, you will not get this, you will not attract this amount of money to finance the political parties. But as a woman, I would sit here and say that the issues of women, in particular for political inclusion, have been fully addressed in the BBI. We've had the proposal also within the political parties to ensure that they, as they present the list to the IEBC, that we would have 2/3 sensitive list. That means, Kendi, that when IEBC decides that there are people vying in this whole country, it will mean that about 600 women would be in the IEBC list. And if you maybe take the political parties, the most big political parties here, you'd notice that if all of them give 2/3 sensitive lists, it would mean that more and more women would make it to the ballot. Other than that, we have ring-fenced positions into the National Assembly, where we have one young female being nominated, and we also have one women PWD being nominated, and we also have one youth seat being nominated. So we have ring-fenced these gains for the minority clusters, and that is the PWD, youth and women.
The youth complain that it is difficult for them, especially people who are interested in politics. Vying for them is very difficult because of the amount of capital required to raise campaign funds and everything. But I will say that also crops from the youth because tokenism comes mostly from the youth. I mean, the people who will ask you for a 50 shilling, for a 50 bob are usually youth. So how do we cure tokenism in the youth? And because if we didn't have tokenism, some of the bad legislators that we have will not be in parliament right now.
I completely agree with you, Kendi. Reducing the expense of politics makes it easier for young people like me and women like me to vie and clinch these seats.
But it is the youth who increase the cost of campaigning.
I was coming to that, Kendi. You know, the cost of campaign is not only increased by the youth. It's not a youth issue. When I was vying myself, I had women groups asking for money for their chamas.
It is women and the youth who actually ask for money most of the times.
Yes, and maybe the top one reason would be that we don't have, what can I say, effective social nets. And these are the two clusters of the population that actually either need empowerment or are seeking for empowerment, or they are disenfranchised when it comes to economic or social gains within the society. So you find that most of the time, the expense of politics is increased because the social security safety nets are not very much developed from the grassroots. So we have young people who are asking for money maybe from a politician because they don't have jobs, or we have women who are asking for money from politicians because they have children to feed and they don't have maybe husbands or economic income activities that can help them. So on your point about reducing the political expense, that is very important.
That if we empower the youth, we reduce
Definitely.
the political expense. Okay.
Definitely.
BBI, it has been accused of dangling the carrot at the youth, that they know the issues that will tug at the heartstrings of the youth. That, help is an issue, tax holidays are an issue, all those things. Is it a carrot that is being dangled to the youth, or is it a good thing? Or does it even matter if it's a carrot or not, as long as the youth get it?
Kendi, that would be a very misleading assertion to say that the BBI is dangling a carrot to the young people. The BBI document is the best bet yet at addressing the issues affecting the young people. As I mentioned earlier, the inclusion of young people in political spaces, economic spaces, has been a challenge in this country for a very long time. And when you properly isolate the BBI and the gains within the document for the young people, you will come to a conclusion that the document in itself was majorly addressing youth issues. Reading the document, you would notice that it is very heavy on the terms youth, very heavy on the terms unemployment, very heavy on the terms disenfranchisement, and these are issues that the young people brought out within the county halls and within the town halls and within when they were making the submissions through their many groups. And Kendi, the one thing that I would like to mention would be empowerment and employment of young people that has been addressed within the document. You notice that we are talking about employment bureaus, and the challenge always has been catching these skills from the grassroots and knowing where a young person needs to go. And when we have employment bureaus that are scattered around counties and further cascaded maybe onto constituencies, more young people will get to know
actually further taken down to the wards.
Yes, where this information and where these opportunities are. The same case for the Biashara Mashinani. We have an introduction to also have a Biashara Mashinani hub or center, same as the Huduma Center, where it will give opportunities for young people who are interested in business, where they will walk in and get information about contracts available under the AGPO categories. They will also get communication and advice on how to present themselves for these businesses, and they will also get money to do these businesses. So it will be a Huduma Center, but for youth empowerment and business issues. And then when you further look about the empowerment of young people, the BBA also proposes issues such as the Youth Commission. You see, we have had a challenge of mainstreaming youth issues around the government bodies. And when we have a Youth Commission, it will mean that youth issues will be further mainstreamed. When we are talking about issues affecting a young person in Northeastern and those affecting a young person in Nairobi, they will be put on the same level, and the Youth Commission will be able to bargain for benefits for the young people.
Agnes, what's the difference between the Youth Commission and the Youth Council?
You see, a youth council is embedded within a ministry. And a youth commission, and a commission is an independent body that attracts independence and financing and a budget independently to do and run their own programs. But when you look at the NYC, yes, and when you look at on the NYC, it's anchored within a ministry. But when you have a commission, you have full autonomy of a body that fully champions youth issues.
You know, I have read the BBI report over and over again. And when I look at it, it looks like a women and youth document. Everything there is either about women or about youth. But when you go out there, the people beating the document the most are the youth. The women have come to terms. They have agreed that this thing is good for us. We are supporting it. But the youth, there is a problem. Because the youth are saying, mimi sitasoma hiyo kitu, and I will not support it. So what do the youth want?
Kendi, to my disappointment, there has been this manufactured hate in social media, in the media, in the mainstream media,
but you see,
against the government.
From the most unlikely source, because as a youth, you have a smartphone. The best thing you can do is go access the document, read it, decide what works for you and what doesn't work for you. When women were asking for dialogue, the women were there. They knew what they wanted. But the youth were very few, because they're like, I'm not going to read that document because I'm not going to support it. They don't care about the content. I am following Nani, and Nani has said we are not supporting that document. Forgetting that the Nani you're following is not even a youth. Help does not affect that person. Tax breaks do not even help me, because he's at a place of comfort. He can afford to pay taxes. But the youth who stands to benefit from all these provisions does not support this document. So what do we do for them?
As I was saying, Kendi, there has been a well-oiled campaign against the government and against benefits of the youth. They have been disenfranchised against any pro-government program that even benefits them. And I think the solution for this, Kendi, because I have sat down with many young people over the past few weeks and months, and we have managed to change minds. We have managed to tell the young people that, listen, the BBI document is offering multiple solutions that will change your life. Solutions around the education sector, empowering the TVETs, giving you a tax moratorium, and giving you even a longer grace period to pay your HELB loan. We have talked to young people, and day in, day out, we are changing their hearts and minds. And I think the best bet against this manufactured hate against the BBI document would be to sit young people down. They listen. I am a young person, and I have maybe opened my eyes to most of the proposals, because I was sat down and I was taken through most of the benefits, and I learned, I was taught, I was better, the document was better explained to me. So Kendi, the only solution would be to further engage young people, and they just need to be engaged. They always feel like they want to be involved, they want to be talked to, they want to be asked questions, they want to be given answers. So I believe the best bet would to be sit them down and tell them, and further unpack this document for them.
Microwave society, the microwave generation, that is the youth.
Yes.
They want instant fixes. You tell them you'll get a 7-year tax break. They tell you, why don't you just give me that money right now? I start the business with, then I can pay the tax with the money that I start with. You tell them that in 5 years we shall do this and this and this, but the youth want it right here, right now. That is why it's so easy to give them tokens, because they'll just come with 100 shillings and give them, as opposed to building that bridge that they need in their village. They would rather get their 50 shillings and eat it. I was talking to someone who's in the Youth Enterprise Fund, and he was telling me that for him, he prefers giving women money, because for the women, they will come together, a group of 10 women, and decide the project they want to do the project and repay the money. For the youth, we shall come together, 10 people, because that's the qualification, that we need to be a group. Come together as 10 people, then go to Youth Enterprise Fund, get our money, and decide, let's divide our money by 10. Kila mtu akafanya project yake. When it comes to paying, none of us is going to pay. So how do we cure that? That the youth are failing their own organizations, things that are there to help them, the youth will not repay that money. The HELB loan right now is experiencing problems because people who benefited from HELB have not repaid the money back. How do we cure that?
Education, information, and engagement is a solution to most of the things that you've highlighted. Over the years, the young people have been painted as unreasonable and antagonistic and maybe, what can I say, unreasonable. They have been painted as a cluster of people that you would not talk sense to. But I work with the young people and and most of them who have benefited from the ways of fund, like the flagship project from President Uhuru Kenyatta. They are very willing to repay these loans. When we talk about HELB, the HELB beneficiaries are very willing to repay these loans. The only issue was I have been given, as a young disadvantaged person going into university, I've been given a HELB loan. I have studied. I have only completed my university degree right now. And then I'm told in a matter of 11 months, I need to start repaying this loan. And if I don't start repaying this loan, I'm going to be charged 5,000 penalty. Yeah. And above that, we have a 2% interest. But you see, these are the issues that have been addressed in the BBI. We are telling a young person that once you finish, you have 4 years to look for an opportunity, to have a foundation, to be financially stable, so that you can be able to repay these loans. When you're talking about ways of funds, I have multiple groups within my community that have helped to get this money and themselves remember that I have this interest to go and pay. So I believe engagement, education, and information is the perfect solution for most of the issues that you've brought up.
Agnes, so much talk about what we need to do for the youth. Everything is about we need to do this for the youth, we need to do this for the youth. But we haven't had conversations on what the youth are willing to do for this country. Because we have to be honest, they're the youngest, they're the most energetic people. What are the youth doing to make the country better? Right now we have a gap in patriotism, where the best things people can do is talk ill about this country. There was a time the president went to France, and all of a sudden their Facebook page was flooded with negative comments from this country. There was another time the American ambassador, I can't remember, and Kenyans were all over his page talking ill about this country. Usi utupatie pesa, ukileta hiyo pesa tutakula. Sijui, don't give him. All that. What do we do to, that is the image the outside sees of our country. And it is usually made negative by the youth because they're the people on social media mostly. So how do we make the youth more patriotic? How do we make them willing to serve this country too? That it's a give and take. The government gives you this, but what are you willing to do? There was a time when guys were looking at the Utu part in BBI, I'm sure you have read it, where it talks about defending your country. And there was an uproar of youth, young people complaining, we shall be forced to join the army in this country. When you go to countries like America, people actually feel like they are obliged to serve in the army because they're serving their country. Do we have that sense in this country where I feel like I need to join the army so that I can defend my country? In the Sudan or Somali border dispute, you will see Kenyans siding with Somalia because we have made it fashionable to hate this country. So what do we do to engage the youth to be more patriotic and to see that when your country is doing well, you're doing well. When your country is doing badly, you're doing badly. Because with patriotism also comes with the need to pay taxes. Right now, any youth would refuse to pay taxes because they don't see the benefits of it. So what do you do about that, the patriotism?
Kendi, this enfranchisement over the years has made, has created an environment of a simmering tension within the young people. But there's something that you said about the young people feeling like we are owed. But I'd point you to the very fact that this country is run by young people. And on global standards, Kenya is known to be a young country because majority of us are young. Majority of the population is young. And to further reinforce this fact is for you to imagine that the workforce of this country, 84% of it is young people. And whenever I hear questions such as what you've presented about why young people feel like a lot of the things that need to be done in a country should be inclined towards their benefit. And most of the things that the young people do, the elderly also do. The elderly, we have a demographic over 65 who's like, okay, we have been neglected, the country needs to serve us, or most of the issues we are not being highlighted, we feel like we are being let go. But the young people, the biggest large workforce, we have been told that we are the engine that runs this society. If it is not as like a lot to expect that the government should have youth-centered solutions to most of the problems affecting the young demographic in this country. So it is not entitlement. It is us needing to be involved within the process.
You know, funny thing, Agnes, is if BBI was a document in, let's say, Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, do you know Kenyans will be sharing it on social media showing Uganda wanafanya hii, Kenya sisi tunaiba tu. Like, it is so easy for us to praise other countries, but when it comes to our country, because look at, let's be honest, this government has done a lot on infrastructure. But if it's in our country, it is theft. But when it's, if something like the bridge that the president was launching was launched in Kigali.
The floating bridge, yes.
Yeah, the floating bridge was launched in Kigali. We will be all over praising Kagame. But when it is done in our country, like, that's a small project. Yeah, so how do we change? Because for me, for the youth, it's an attitude problem. It's not even not about being involved in decision making. It's just that the attitude is wrong, that serving the government is wrong for the youth. That if you're supporting the government, you're on the wrong side. For them, it is easier for them to fight and keep complaining than offering solutions. So how do we start coming up with solutions? More solutions than more problems. The problems will always be there. Yes, and they will always affect, obviously, the largest population. So how do we offer more solutions to our government?
Kendi, you're looking at this issue with a one-sided view, because you've mentioned, according to the social media, you've mentioned multiple young people who go online to attack the government. But we also have very, very many young people like myself who present themselves in the political processes, who are pro-establishment, who take time outside of their routines and work schedules to communicate programs that are sponsored by the government. So if you look at it on a one-sided view, and remember, I mentioned this manufactured hate, like there was a campaign that was made.
It is fashionable.
And it was funded, yes, to make the young person believe that their country has let them down. But we are saying that it is not too late.
Do you think the country has let us down?
We are changing hearts and minds of young people who are seeing the light, who are appreciating what the government is doing to change their lives.
Do you think the country has let the youth down?
Definitely no.
Why?
When you look at most administrations that have passed maybe from the formative years, when you look at President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration, Kendi, you would notice that this is the one administration that has deliberately sought to cure most of the issues affecting the young people. True. I would mention to you maybe just a few. When you maybe just highlight the Kenya Young Employment and Opportunities Project that has changed thousands of lives. We have right now a transition rate of over 70% of young people who are put in various organizations through internship programs,
no, even for the government,
into the country.
All new employments go to the youth.
Yes, they are absorbed. We have a transition rate that is very high. They're absorbed within the workforce. And we have also under the Kenya Youth Employment and Opportunities Program, young people who have been given grants to start these businesses. I will also bring to your attention to the National Youth Service. It is in this administration that we have tripled the rate of applicants and cohorts who join NYS. We have multiple and young people in their thousands joining and equipping themselves with market skills. And you know, the issue has always been that we have a workforce, young people who want jobs, but they are not equipped to do these jobs. So it is in President Uhuru's Kenyatta administration that we have seen an increase in NYS cohorts. I will also talk about the Ajira Digital that seeks to bring in millions of young people who are interested in the digital space. And you've noticed that the world is moving digitally. And if you were to maybe compare what the USA did under the Clinton administration, onboarding young people into the digital space and giving them opportunities where they can work online. And the other thing would be giving money and access to credit to young people. You look at the Wezo Fund. It is under President Uhuru's administration that young people have accessed these funds. They have started businesses. We didn't have as many young people with businesses in the communities as we have done now. So if
but there's always that comparison between the Kibaki government and the Uhuru government.
Yes, because it was the most recent, and President Kenyatta succeeded President Mwai Kibaki. And in relation to those two administrations, we have seen a very, very huge increase. And if you listen to the president, whenever he has an opportunity to talk to the public, he mentions young people. And also, remember that he's a global youth champion of empowerment. So we have a president who is very deliberate on solving youth issues. And if you were to, if that question of whether or not the government has failed the young people, it's definitely no.
BBI, was it a hit or a miss?
A huge hit.
Were there misses?
I was disappointed on the fact that one or two proposals that I was supporting did not see the light of day. I really wanted the IEBC to have commissioners who are coming from the political parties, and I believe that that model of filling up the commissioners within the IEBC would have solved most of the problems we have when it comes to elections.
That document was a youth document.
It is a youth document.
But were there any misses there?
No, not that I can mention.
Can the government cure the unemployment of the youth? Because most of the things that you mentioned usually would apply for someone in Nairobi. But how does a person in the county, mashinani, benefit from those?
The problems of unemployment in this country can be solved when we fully implement sessional paper number 4 of 2013. And if you critically assess President Uhuru's government, you'd see that he's implementing most of the proposals that were given in that sessional paper. When we talk about skill development, it is in his government that we have implemented the further expansion of TVETs. We are seeing right now that young people are being absorbed into TVET institutions. They are equipped with skills. And our issue had been, like I mentioned, that young people are ready to work. They have maybe they have informal skills that have not been refined. And when you expand the absorption into these TVET institutions, we are further equipping these young people with skills that would make them more reliable in the job market. When you talk about market linkages, because that is one of the issues, you see President Uhuru, he's working with even the private sector. Like last year, he launched the MasterCard, together with the MasterCard Foundation. They launched a very elaborate framework of involving young people in the private sector. So issues with unemployment can be solved with market linkage and skills development. And those are some of the programs that are being implemented in this administration, Kendi.
Finally, as you wind up and as you make your closing remark, BBI, can it wait? Is it too soon? Is it the right thing, but at the wrong time? Do we need BBI right now in 2020?
We need BBI now more than ever, and I do not think that BBI can wait. You know, many people are saying that it is a document that has maybe come at a wrong timing. But I would like to remind
But they're agreeing it's a good document.
It is a good document, and it is being implemented in the right time, Kendi.
Okay, thank you very much. That was Agnes Ibara. Thank you, Agnes, for such an insightful talk. And I hope the youth were listening. We have complaints about them, but Agnes offered a solution to every complaint. Thank you. I'm Kendi Mbaya. I was sitting in for Alex Njeri.